Coming up, a boat crash on the Lake of the Ozarks leaves 3 people injured.
Back to it as we begin June. We're going to talk about not only thunderstorm activity, but flood watches as well. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, authorities discover a man's body in Elk River.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5 a.m. I'm Bronte Sorotsky. We'll get to those stories in just a bit, but first, Michael, we had a pretty nice day yesterday, but
beautiful day.
It was great Memorial Day,
Yeah.
but going into the rest of the week, we are going to see a bit of a shift in the weather, right?
We're going to be right back to it as we close out the month of May, which we know has been abnormally wet. You know, 5th wettest record on record at Joplin Regional Airport. So here we stand. We have flood watches that are already in effect as we can anticipate another 2 to 3 inches of rain. Now, not for this morning so much. We're going to do this to open up the beginning of June. So it's really not going to be until tonight all the way into Wednesday morning, because you'll notice that flood watch, it doesn't expire until early Wednesday. But here's what we've got cooking right now. Everything stays out to the west and northwest of us in the early morning hours, so we don't have any concerns. What we will do is concentrate on what's out here in Wichita and what backbills eventually through portions of Oklahoma with Gulf moisture. But that gives you an indication of what's already transpiring up to our north and our northwest. That is what's going to be of concern. You can also tell with the color contour, much cooler temperatures when those storms hit. But for us, for the most part, we sit in the mid-70s right now. It's a very delightful Tuesday morning. And the national perspective, it shows you how that front is collapsing. Right there, about yesterday, we saw that line up here, and now we just see it collapsing down to the southeast slowly but surely. Still, Tuesday, for the most part, we're going to be good. We're not going to see a whole lot of precipitation until we get to the evening hour. So your morning is not going to be worrisome. Now, I would take the umbrella for tonight, because what's going to happen is as it moves through, once again, it drops down from northwest, pushes off to the southeast. And once we get a rolling here, that's why we've got the flood watches, because we are going to pick up some heavy rain all the way from Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Yeah, cooler too. You notice the daily highs drop down about 10 degrees into the mid-70s for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And unfortunately, Bronte, we have to keep those chances for rain all the way into the weekend. Oh
man, you know, at least we got to enjoy it yesterday. We have today.
I know. Then we're right back on it. I knew the rain was coming. That wasn't a surprise. I really wanted to avoid the flood watches.
Right.
But it's just because we're so saturated. We're so inundated right now. It's not so much that, yeah, the rain is going to be heavy at times, but it's a combination of what we've had for the entire month. Can't take anymore.
Got it. Well, definitely we'll be sure to, keep out for those watches. Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
Missouri State Highway Patrol says a boat capsized on Lake of the Ozarks around 6 Sunday evening. Officials say the boat was traveling too fast for conditions, which caused it to capsize. The 3 people on the boat were ejected. 41-year-old Derek Grigsby of Sand Springs and a 13-year-old girl were transported to a hospital for moderate injuries. A 13-year-old boy had minor injuries, but he refused treatment. Authorities have discovered a man's body in Elk River. Officials responded to reports Sunday evening of a man missing on Elk River south of Ginger Blue near Mount Shira access. 40-year-old Matthew Frazier was discovered this morning unresponsive. Frazier was pronounced dead shortly after. He was not wearing a life vest. The Grand River Dam Authority police are searching for a missing boater. Officials say they're searching a large area of Grand Lake for 48-year-old Troy Young of Bixby. GRDA police say they were notified Young was missing around 8 Saturday morning, and that Young was last seen around 10:30 on Friday night. Officers recovered Young's boat near the entrance of Ketchum Cove, about 1.5 miles from Cedar Port. Authorities are asking any boaters in the area to be mindful of the search efforts, and anyone with information is asked to call the GRDA police. Well, across the nation and the 4 states, Americans honored heroes on Memorial Day. Across Among the sites hosting ceremonies was the GAR Cemetery in Miami, Oklahoma. This ceremony was open to all in the community that wanted to pay their respects and observe. The event featured veterans and presented each branch of the military. They led those in attendance with opening and closing prayers, the national anthem, fire volleys, and taps.
The people out here that have fallen, you just can't honor them enough. I mean, they gave their life for our freedom. It's just, all you can say is just an honor.
We're going to hear more from Navy veteran Eldon Johnson later in the show. A child care center in McDonald County getting a makeover thanks to a grant-funded program. The Infant Toddler Specialist Network benefits subsidized daycare providers across 10 counties in southwest Missouri. The program aims to level the playing field against other providers by offering education, training, and of course, toys to places like We Care for We Folks in Knoll. These enriching activities promote healthy brain development and stress relief, especially for kids with special needs.
We have several children here in this center that have some behavioral needs. And so we have provided a sensory room for them to get those essential breaks that they need throughout the day to learn to self-regulate so that they can go back to learning.
ITSN currently serves Jasper, McDonald County, Perry County, and Lawrence County. If you'd like more information on the program, you can check it out on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. And coming up in our 6 o'clock hour, we'll hear more from Kate Kelly on this daycare. Well, it's time for summer baseball at Joe Becker Stadium. The Joplin Outlaws open up their season at home on Thursday. Monday was the first time the team all met together, and there's a few big changes this year. Pitt State assistant Gonzalo Gonzalez takes over as head coach of the Outlaws. Recent PSU grads Austin Bonnell and Caleb Carr joined Gonzalez on the coaching staff. As for the roster, it's made up of talent from all across the country, including a handful of local athletes.
It's a big honor to be able to come out here and play in my hometown, have the people that supported me through high school come out and watch me again. It should be a good time, and I'm glad to be here.
At the end of the day, it's about these guys coming here, developing and getting better, and hopefully winning some baseball games in the process. So for me, it's just keeping things loose, having these guys have some fun, and everybody knows that if you're able to play loose and play in a little bit more of a fun atmosphere, you get a better player in the end.
Autonomous vehicles, aka self-driving cars, aren't even out of the testing phase yet. But enthusiasm about them is so intense, they already have their own day of observance. This year, National Autonomous Vehicle Day falls on Tuesday. It's celebrated annually on May 31st. Self-driving cars have captured the imagination of filmmakers, science fiction authors, and the general public for decades. But the world could be within just 2 decades of them becoming commonplace. More and more driverless cars test areas are popping up all the time. Some experts believe autonomous vehicles will make up roughly a quarter of the global market in under 20 years.
You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy.
You wouldn't try it out?
No.
I mean, I wouldn't either. I just, yeah.
That video right there, it makes me want to grab the steering wheel.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of understand. I understand the concept. It doesn't mean I have to, it doesn't mean I would do it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I personally like when I drive with friends, I like being the one driving.
Right.
So I can't imagine just having a car do it for me.
I'm completely with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice on long road trips, I suppose, as long as everything works.
Let's address the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Michael and cars and safety in general. Why don't we do that, folks? It's a joke. Relax. Poor Tim doesn't know whether to look in the studio or just be like, there he is. And I'm like, Tim, let's just talk about cars and safety and what Hazel thinks about that. I'm not trying to make everybody uncomfortable. My goodness. Okay, our weather trend for today. We're going to have sunny skies early, work up into the 80s, and we are in the midst of flood watches right now. We can anticipate anywhere from 2 to 3 inches. Also, too, Bronte, what I wanted to bring up earlier is when this thing rolls through, that line right there, overnight into tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the possibility of golf ball size hail and high winds as well. So that's going to transpire overnight into Wednesday, and then the rain just keeps on a-coming. It's pretty much all-encompassing, but I do want to point out on the severe thunderstorm risk map, this is only the second time this year I think that we have made the elevated category, and so this is one of those things that I need people on their toes for tonight into tomorrow morning. This is not something that we're going to take lightly. We're going to be very serious about this. That's why we throw up today as an alert day with the flood watches. And our temperatures back into the 70s, but more importantly, the amount of rain we're going to pick up. Once again, 2 to 3 inches by the time we get done with Wednesday.
All right, well, that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, the Outlaws season is here. We give you a sneak peek at them. Plus, the debate for gun control is on. People are calling for lawmakers to take a stand and make change. And acute stress can severely affect your chances at fighting disease. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
It is just about summer baseball time at historic Joe Becker Stadium. Joplin Outlaws opening up their season, going to do so at home in just a few days. And our own Danny Terzer with the story.
The Joplin Outlaws are days away from their season opener. Today, the team met for the very first time.
These guys are going to really see that the city of Joplin does a great job of supporting the program. So it's important for us to be able to put a good product out on the field for these fans and for the city of Joplin.
Pitt State assistant Gonzalo Gonzalez takes over as head coach of the Outlaws.
For me, I think it's just having these guys stay loose, right? At the end of the day, it's about these guys coming here, developing and getting better and hopefully winning some baseball games in the process. Everybody knows that if you're able to play loose and play in a little bit more of a fun atmosphere, you get a better player in the end.
Gonzalez is joined by two of his former players, recent PSU grads Austin Bonnell and Caleb Carr.
I really think both those guys have great baseball minds or else they wouldn't be here, and they do have a really good knack for building relationships with players, so that was a big reason why I wanted them on this summer.
This year's roster is filled with talent from across the country, from as far as Hawaii to right here in the 4 states.
It's a big honor to be able to come out here and play in my hometown, have the people that supported me through high school come out and watch me again. It should be a good time, and I'm glad to be here.
Yesterday we came here and visited the stadium, and it's really nice. I haven't really played at a college stadium like this, and back home we don't really have fields like this, so it's a really good experience.
Now it's full speed ahead.
These next couple of days of practice are really about is these guys getting to know one another, how each other plays, and hopefully build some team camaraderie, and we can really see what kind of product we can put out there.
In Joplin, Danny Terzer, KOAM Sports.
Outlaws hosting the Nevada Griffins in the season opener. That'll take place Thursday. First pitch scheduled for 7 p.m. Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, a man arrested for throwing a pie at the Mona Lisa. And a check on our 7-day forecast. And, I don't know, I'll take you to St. Louis too, when the KOAM Morning News returns. Tuesday morning thunderstorms staying off to our north and our west, but it gives you an idea that, I tell you what, it's game on as we wrap up the month of May and get ready for June. While it's not affecting us directly, we will see gradually increased cloud cover, and also too, we've already got flood watches in effect for our area lasting until Wednesday morning. We can anticipate 2 to 3 inches of rain, along with not only high winds, but also the possibility of hail. Still quiet over 7th and Range Line. Wind has not calmed down one bit, still gusting up to 30 miles per hour and working so out of the south. You'll notice top left-hand portion of your screen where that defining cold front is sitting there, where they do have the rain in the Wichita, Kansas City area. That being said, we start off on the warm side, 76 right now in Joplin, 77 already in Chanute, and 72 in Monette. Skywatch Storm Tracker from the national perspective right along that dividing line. That is where we're seeing the thunderstorm activity, and as that collapses down to the southeast, That is what is going to approach us for tonight into tomorrow. That being said, still make it up into the mid-80s today, and as the storm continues to roll through, it really gets started with action for this evening all the way into tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning is going to be our greatest threat for the high wind and the hail. And as it continues through all the way through Wednesday afternoon, we do find ourselves in the significant area on the severe thunderstorm risk map. I do believe, if memory serves correctly, this will only be the second time this year that we have been in that elevated category, something that we do not take lightly, because even if you're not even in the elevated part, you'll notice that you are in the low portion of it. And so once again, wind and hail are main threats to go along with the lightning and the 2 to 3 inches of rain. And a 7-day forecast, a little bit of a cool down. Temperature's not going to be too bad. It's really just making sure we are on our toes for tonight into tomorrow. Since Friday, there have already been at least 12 mass shootings nationwide. That's according to the Gun Violence Archive, including one that killed 1 person and wounded 7 more at a festival in Oklahoma. Another injured 6 people in downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee. Nicole Killian has those details. She's on Capitol Hill.
In Houston, a fierce divide between gun safety demonstrators and gun rights advocates outside the NRA convention.
Guns are killing people and no one's doing anything about it.
Just banning a gun isn't going to stop anything.
On Capitol Hill, where lawmakers left for the Memorial Day recess, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy told Face the Nation he believes Congress can get at least 60 votes on gun legislation.
I do think there's an opportunity right now to be able to pass something significant. I've seen more Republican interest in coming to the table and talking this time than at any other moment since Sandy Hook.
Murphy is leading a bipartisan group of senators discussing proposals from expanded background checks to red flag laws, which allow courts to temporarily seize firearms from individuals deemed to be a risk.
I think there's a lot of problems with red flag laws, especially at a national level.
Convincing Republican rank and file remains an uphill battle, though some seem willing to budge.
Raising the age of gun purchase to 21 is a no-brainer.
At least 3 states have pledged action on tougher gun control laws in the wake of Uvalde. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson says he wants to convene a bipartisan group of governors, but argues the focus should be on school safety instead of guns.
AR-15s were around for 40 years before they were ever used in any type of mass killing or attack. It is about identifying the culprits and going after them.
Senate bipartisan negotiations are expected to continue this week. The House is working on its own package of legislation and could vote on a red flag bill as soon as next week. Nicole Killian, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Brings us to our Instapoll question for the morning: what do lawmakers need to do about gun control? Got several options there on the board, and you can find out what those are by going to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote or connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now. We'll be back with Health Watch right after this.
Topping Health Watch this morning, a major study out of the UK warns problems with heart health will be with us for years to come because of the disruption to services during the COVID-19 pandemic. Researchers say cardiac disease will likely worsen unless mitigation strategies are quickly implemented. They say the issues were exacerbated in low to middle income countries. The study says during COVID, heart patients were sometimes not given gold standard treatment, receiving drugs instead of interventional procedures. Research from New York's Mount Sinai Health System finds acute stress may be detrimental in fighting off COVID-19 and the flu. The study shows an increased risk of dying in mice. It found stress diminished an immune response, making the body less resistant to fighting infection and increasing the risk of complications and death. And drinking both unsweetened coffee and coffee sweetened with sugar is associated with a lower risk of death compared to non-coffee drinkers, according to a study conducted in China and the UK. The benefits were tied to moderate consumption, 1.5 to 3.5 cups of coffee a day. The results for those using artificial sweeteners were less clear. The FDA has a warning about a dangerous TikTok trend involving avocados. TikTok users are storing already cut avocados in water to keep them from going brown. The Food and Drug Administration says keeping this method is risky as it opens a gateway for bacterial contamination. The agency and doctors are urging people to store avocados on a dry surface. The FDA says bacteria like salmonella can be on the avocado surface and can expand if stored in water, causing fever, nausea, and diarrhea. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. We'll be right back. Coming up, a boat crash on the Lake of the Ozarks leaves 3 people injured.
We have severe thunderstorms on their way. It's going to be a great looking beginning to Tuesday, but eventually we're talking about hail and high winds.
Also, authorities discover a man's body in Elk River.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Bronte Sorotsky. We'll get to those stories in just a bit, but first, Michael's going to tell us about the day we're having right now. We're having a pretty nice day, but
It's great right now.
But what can we expect later?
Absolutely no problem right now, Bronte. That's a great point. But what we do have, the severe thunderstorm risk map for tonight into tomorrow morning. I want to go ahead and we're going to jump right into this because we find ourselves in that elevated category as we will have thunderstorms move in from the southwest, and that is why we see the elevated category for the western portion of southeast Kansas, everybody in the low category. And what that's going to mean is the possibility of high wind and hail, both of those, including how about 2 to 3 inches of rain to start the new month. Here's where we stand currently on the radar. We see just a little bit trying to filter into the far northwest, but everything is going to sit off north of Wichita up through Kansas City. That band right there, well, that's not really going to affect us right now, but it is eventually going to sink down to the southwest, or southeast, and sit along us. And that is why we already have the flood watches in effect until Wednesday. That 9 a.m., I'm going to tell you, that's going to be extended until the afternoon. So let's talk about future track, because after we get into the 80s today, watch the moisture sink down to the south, right through us. So there we go. So we'll get started here, this afternoon, and then all the way through the evening hours, very heavy rain as that rolls through. And then this band right here, this is what we're talking about on the severe thunderstorm risk map. When that rolls through, that's going to bring us the wind and even hail. So early Wednesday morning, eventually blowing through. Also, too, much cooler temps. And when I say cooler, yeah, only in the 70s, but you have to remember our average high for this time of year should be around 82, 83 degrees. So we'll be about 10 degrees below that until we get to the weekend.
All right. Well, that's certainly interesting.
Yeah,
the change.
It'll be a tad bit interesting tonight.
Oh, definitely. Well, thanks, Michael. Authorities have discovered a man's body in Elk River. Officials responded to reports Sunday evening of a man missing on Elk River, south of Ginger Blue, near Mount Shira access. 40-year-old Matthew Frazier was discovered this morning unresponsive. Frazier was pronounced dead shortly after. He was not wearing a life vest. Missouri State Highway Patrol says a boat capsized on Lake of the Ozarks around 6 Sunday evening. Officials say the boat was traveling too fast for conditions, which caused it to capsize. The 3 people on the boat were ejected. 41-year-old Derek Grigsby of Sand Springs and a 13-year-old girl were transported to a hospital for moderate injuries. A 13-year-old boy had minor injuries but refused treatment. The Grand River Dam Authority police are searching for a missing boater. Officials say they're searching a large area of Grand Lake for 48-year-old Troy Young of Bixby. GRDA police say they were notified Young was missing around 8 Saturday morning and that Young was last seen around 10:30 Friday night. Officers recovered Young's boat near the entrance of Ketchum Cove, about 1.5 miles from Cedar Point. Authorities are asking any boaters in the area to be mindful of the search efforts, and anyone with information is asked to call the GRDA police. Pittsburgh State University honored veterans and their families with a virtual Memorial Day ceremony. The ceremony featured traditional elements, including recordings of a color guard comprised of cadets from PSU's ROTC program and recordings of PSU music students singing the national anthem and playing taps. The ceremony featured recorded remarks by Kirby Brown, current dean of Park University's College of Management and a 40-year veteran of military and federal service.
To please think in some reflection on those people who have gone before us, protected our way of life, and in general have given of their life to ensure we are able to live the life that we have now.
You can view the entire ceremony anytime at pittstate.tv. The Freedom of Flight Museum in Webb City paid a tribute to veterans with a new exhibit. The Honoring Our Veterans exhibit tells the stories of veterans, places, and events related to all branches of the military. Visitors also had the opportunity to sit inside a supersonic cockpit and handle aircraft equipment.
Memorial Day is the day that we all get together as a nation to remember those who have gone on before us, those who have served our nation and given their lives for the honor of the country.
Admission was free and the exhibit was open from noon to 6 p.m. Well, ceremonies across the 4 states honored heroes on Memorial Day. As Jalen Banks reports, one ceremony was open to anyone to honor men and women who fought for our nation's freedom.
Solemn ceremonies like this one at Miami's GAR Cemetery are part of a long-standing American tradition. Memorial Day became an official federal holiday in 1971, but you can trace its origins all the way back to shortly thereafter the Civil War, where people have taken it upon themselves to honor our fallen soldiers. After years of war and 600,000 deaths later, in 1866, women in Columbus, Mississippi, laid flowers on the graves of both Union and Confederate soldiers. This, and many other practices like it, will lead to the holiday that we observe today. Eldon Johnston, a Navy veteran, speaks on what this day means to him and the community.
We come out and do this every year. It's just an honor to honor the fallen veterans, and it's just good to see the crowd turn out. As far as patriotism, this area is about as good as you can get.
The GAR Cemetery held a Memorial Day ceremony, giving community members a chance to honor and pay respects to those who gave their lives serving our country. The ceremony featured an honor guard, fire volleys, the playing of taps, and words from veterans.
The people out here that have fallen, you just can't honor them enough. I mean, they gave their life for our freedom. It's just, all you can say is just an honor.
At the GAR Cemetery in Miami, Oklahoma, honoring those that gave their lives to defend this country. Jalen Banks, KOAM News.
Each branch of the military was represented at the ceremony. And now here's Michael with a look at your forecast.
Oh, okay, my bad. Yeah, just going by my rundown. I was actually checking out Agatha, which is now a tropical storm. Made landfall over Mexico yesterday and will not pose any serious dangers. But yeah, now that we're in a tropical storm season, and there's our letter A, Agatha, which once again hit I would say about central Mexico, and we'll break that down here in just a little bit. Temperatures right now, mid-70s, delightful looking morning. It is hard to beat when you step outside. But remember, this cold front, it's a slow-moving cold front that's going to sag down upon us. And on the leading edge of that front is going to be thunderstorm activity for tonight all the way into Thursday morning. Flood watches in effect. We're talking about 2 to 3 inches of rain. We are also going to have to deal with anywhere from, I'd say, 50-mile-an-hour winds and the possibility of golf ball-sized hail.
Well, this morning we're discussing lawmakers making a change. A fierce divide between gun safety demonstrators and gun rights advocates outside the NRA convention and on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers left for the Memorial Day recess. Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy told Face the Nation he believes Congress can get at least 60 votes on gun legislation. Convincing Republican rank and file remains an uphill battle, though some seem willing to budge. At least 3 states have pledged action on tougher gun control laws in the wake of Uvalde. This brings us to our Something to Talk About. What do lawmakers need to do about gun control?
And right now, Bronte, we have 45% of our respondents saying to increase security funding. Coming in a distant second place, about half of those votes, is to fund mental health. We've got a number of other options on there as well, including pass new laws, ban assault weapons, and also better background checks. You can take part each and every morning by going to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote or connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now.
That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News. If you're celebrating the Queen, you can't forget to celebrate her corgis too. Plus, Hurricane Agatha hits Mexico. We'll have the latest. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Topping World Watch, more than 90 people are dead after heavy rainfall in northeastern Brazil. The rain triggered landslides and floods, wiping out neighborhoods. Thousands of people have been forced out of their homes, and the search continues for the dozens of people who are still missing. Brazil President Jair Bolsonaro got a first-hand look at the damage Monday and told reporters, unfortunately, these catastrophes happen. He has promised help for those impacted. A Category 2 hurricane made landfall in southern Mexico Monday afternoon. Hurricane Agatha brought with it winds of 105 miles per hour. Agatha is expected to continue to produce strong winds and flooding rains as it moves inland over the next 24 hours. Agatha has most recently been classified as a tropical storm. One of the world's most famous paintings just got caked in the face. A 36-year-old man entered the Louvre Museum in Paris with cake on Sunday. He then smeared the frosting all over the Renaissance-era painting's protective glass. The Louvre says he had a wheelchair so he could get close to the Mona Lisa. The painting was not damaged, but as you can imagine, dozens of people standing around to admire the Leonardo da Vinci masterpiece got much more than they expected. Police arrested the man. The Paris prosecutor's office says he was taken to a psychiatric infirmary in the police headquarters. If you join us on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, we'll have more on this not-so-sweet story. A U.S. congressional delegation arrived in Taipei, Taiwan Monday in a visit that was not publicly announced ahead of time. The delegation, led by Senator Tammy Duckworth, will meet with Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen on Tuesday. They are expected to discuss regional security, economic and trade cooperation, and other issues. They'll also meet with Taiwan's Premier and Economic Affairs Minister before leaving Wednesday. Duckworth's visit follows her trip to Taipei last June, when she announced the U.S. would donate 750,000 COVID vaccines to Taiwan. And in April, a high-profile bipartisan congressional delegation traveled to Taiwan for a one-day visit. That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. We'll be right back with the news you need to know before you head out the door. Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Missouri State Highway Patrol says a boat capsized on Lake of the Ozarks around 6 Sunday evening. Officials say the boat was traveling too fast for conditions, which caused it to capsize. The 3 people on the boat were ejected. 41-year-old Derek Grigsby of Sand Springs and a 13-year-old girl were transported to a hospital for moderate injuries. A 13-year-old boy had minor injuries but refused treatment. Authorities have discovered a man's body in Elk River. Officials responded to reports Sunday evening of a man missing on Elk River south of Ginger Blue, near Mount Shira access. 40-year-old Matthew Frazier was discovered this morning unresponsive. Frazier was pronounced dead shortly after. He was not wearing a life vest. The Grand River Dam Authority police are searching for a missing boater. Officials say they're searching a large area of Grand Lake for a 48-year-old Troy Young of Bixby. GRDA police say they were notified Young was missing around 8 Saturday morning and that Young was last seen around 10:30 Friday night. Officers recovered Young's boat near the entrance of Ketchum Cove, about a mile and a half from Cedar Port. Authorities are asking any boaters in the area to be mindful of the search efforts, and anyone with information is asked to call the GRDA police. A child care center in McDonald County is getting a makeover thanks to a grant-funded program. The Infant Toddler Specialist Network benefits subsidized daycare providers across 10 counties in southwest Missouri. The program aims to level the playing field against other providers by offering education, training, and of course, toys. These enriching activities promote healthy brain development. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
A very warm morning is going to be followed by some thunderstorm activity for tonight into tomorrow. A slow-moving cold front that has now developed off to our northwest is going to sag down upon us, and as it does, it will bring us thunderstorms that also, too, are going to pack some high winds, even the possibility of some hail as we find ourselves in the elevated category on the severe thunderstorm risk map. And also, too, our temperature is going to level off by about 10 degrees. But more importantly, let's talk about what we've got cooking here as far as our threats. That's going to be out to the west, where you see the elevated category on the severe thunderstorm risk map, and a swath that it puts the entire 4 states pretty much even in that low category. And when we talk about that, well, that is what's going to transpire with 2 to 3 inches of rain, including flood watches abound all the way until Wednesday afternoon. We'll have more KOAM morning news for you right after this.
Queen Elizabeth's love for dogs is taking center stage as Britain prepares to celebrate her 70 years on the throne. As Ian Lee reports from London, royal fans say it's no barking matter.
Royalty is revered, whether ruling a country or a home.
I thought it was only right to go with quite a regal name for him, hence he's called George.
The Corgi is top dog in Britain. At this London cafe, the regal pedigree is getting pampered ahead of Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee.
I love the Jubilee, I love the Queen, and I love that the Queen's got corgis.
The 96-year-old monarch grew up with the stubby dogs, owning more than 30. Their only drama during her reign, nipping people at the palace. These corgis are more fond of puppuccinos, so it may not come as a surprise that the breed, loved from queen to commoner, will be showcased in this week's festivities. A 4-day national holiday to honor the Queen kicks off on Thursday with parades, pageants, and street parties.
One of the things we're going to see in the pageant on Sunday is a reflection of her love for animals, for horses, for her corgis.
All this pomp and puppy love can get a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it's great. I feel proud to be British.
As the UK celebrates its very own leader of the pack. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
Most of the Queen's royal line of corgis are all direct descendants from her first corgi, who's named Susan. We'll be right back with another look at your forecast right after this.
Beautiful start to our Tuesday morning. The live look outside of Television City right there over our satellite arrays where we got clear skies. Talk about our daily almanac. Average high, be low 80s, but we'll actually be up into the mid to high 80s later on today. However, slow moving cold front off to our northwest going to bring us dramatic changes here in the next 12 hours. Look at that record dating back to 1949, a high of 95 degrees. My goodness. And good thing we don't have to put up with that. Here's where we sit right now as the rain stays off to our northwest, a line pretty much from Wichita up to Kansas City. You had dramatic thunderstorm activity. That thing has already dropped about 2 inches of rain on that specific line. If we go back and look at our storm reports, it gives you an idea. It's also throwing down some hail. When we push up into the far northwestern section of the 4 states, we see a hail report in Lyon County, an inch in diameter. Throw up one there up by Emporia, another inch, and also too get up into Jackson County up by KC. 1.3 inches of diameter in hail. That is impressive in and of itself. Now, as far as what we're going to be concerned with, yes, we have the possibility not only of hail and high winds later tonight, but we also have a flood watch in effect for our counties indicated there in green, and that lasts all the way into Wednesday morning. The times are kind of different as far as where you're spread around. The ones up to the north will expire just a tad bit earlier than the ones in the central and southern portion of the 4 states. But what we're looking at is excessive rainfall, bringing us 2 to 3 inches of rain here overnight. As we get over 7th and Rangeline, still a little bit windy, gusting up to 29 miles per hour at Joplin Regional Airport. Sustained winds out of the south at 16 miles per hour. Temperatures right now, not too bad, but you'll notice the color contour will show you up to the top left-hand portion of your screen to the northwest, where that dividing line is sitting about 15 to 20 degrees cooler, and that is going to sag down upon us. We're not going to notice really the dramatic fall in the temperatures because our overnight lows are still going to maintain the 70s. But do want to point out that that line right there is going to drop right down on us. I think that gives you a good indicator. Instead of it tracking toward the Great Lakes, it's actually going to pick up Gulf moisture, head toward us. Today, afternoon-wise, morning and afternoon-wise, it's going to be fine. But then we'll kick into gear probably about 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight. And once we do, that's the defining line right there. That's going to bring us the high wind, even the possibility of hail, to the point where when we take a look at the severe thunderstorm risk map, we even see the elevated category. Only the second time this year that I know of that we have shown up in that portion on the map. 7-day forecast going to ride the 70s until the weekend. Rebound, get us back into the 80s for Saturday and Sunday. Most importantly, let's just be on the lookout for severe weather late tonight.
Coming up, authorities search Grand Lake for a Bixby, Oklahoma man.
Well, it's a wonderful Tuesday morning start. We have thunderstorms on the horizon. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, a child care center in McDonald County receives a much-needed grant for education, training, and, of course, toys.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6 a.m. I'm Bronte Sorotsky. We'll get to those stories in just a minute, but first, Michael, we're going to talk about, we're having a beautiful day, but we do have some thunderstorms on the horizon, right?
So here's what, Bronte, you're exactly right. And so here's what we're doing. We're tracking those that they're sitting off to the northwest right now. But what you're going to find happening, and we're already seeing it formulate, as it's got a little southeasterly sink to it. And so what I mean by that, there's a cold front that ranges from about Wichita to Kansas City. But gradually, things are going to start dropping in on our counties because that cold front is going to push from northwest down to southeast. And so here we are, get up in Iola area, Yates Center, and they're starting to already experience the rainfall. And so what that's leading us to is flood watches abound for every county indicated in green all the way until tomorrow morning. Now, with that being said, so far so good. Joplin sits at 75 degrees, live look over 7th and Rangeline right now. Still a little bit windy, but we've yet to see a dramatic fall in our temperatures. We're going to pay attention to Yates Center, top left-hand corner of your screen. That's where we will begin to see the cold front move in. But for the most part, everybody's still going to make it up into the 80s today. When we do talk about future track, here's what we've got cooking. By the time we get to this afternoon and the evening hours, the rain makes its way, picks up the Gulf moisture, and then blows it right through the middle of us all the way from tonight into Wednesday morning. That leads us to the severe thunderstorm risk map, where we will not only have the high threat of winds, but also hail. This thing is already throwing down an inch diameter hail up in the Kansas City region. So that is something that we're not going to fool around with. 7-day forecast, cooler temperatures, 70s, not too bad. We're not talking about a major cold front, but at the same point in time, we should be sitting around 82, 83. And so we're going to drop about 10 degrees below that. But the big factor is for tonight into tomorrow morning. Need everybody on their toes, anticipating rain, wind, hail.
Definitely need to keep an eye out for that and,
yes,
have a plan in place.
And remember, you can download the Skywatch Weather app absolutely for free, and that's how we keep you updated on all our severe weather threats.
Definitely. Thanks, Michael. The Grand River Dam Authority police search for a missing boater. Authorities say they're searching a large area of Grand Lake for 48-year-old Troy Young of Bixby. GRDA police say they were notified Young was missing around 8 Saturday morning and that Young was last seen around 10:30 Friday night. Officers recovered Young's boat near the entrance of Ketchum Cove, about a mile and a half from Cedar Port. Authorities are asking any boaters in the area to be mindful of the search efforts, and anyone with information is asked to call the GRDA police. Authorities discover a man's body in Elk River. Officials responded to reports Sunday evening of a man missing on Elk River south of Ginger Blue near Mount Shira access. 40-year-old Matthew Frazier was discovered this morning unresponsive. Frazier was pronounced dead shortly after. He was not wearing a life vest. The Missouri State Highway Patrol reports a boat capsized on Lake of the Ozarks around 6 Sunday evening. Officials say the boat was traveling too fast for conditions, which caused it to capsize. 3 people on the boat were ejected. 41-year-old Derek Grigsby of Sand Springs and a 13-year-old girl were transported to a hospital for moderate injuries. A 13-year-old boy had minor injuries but refused treatment. A child care center in McDonald County will get a needed makeover thanks to a grant-funded program. The Infant Toddler Specialist Networks benefits subsidized daycare providers across 10 counties in southwest Missouri. The program aims to level the playing field against other providers by offering education, training, and, of course, toys. These enriching activities promote healthy brain development.
We serve children birth to age 3, and we know that that is such a critical time for children's development. Birth to age 3 is the fastest growing developmental period for children.
Later in the show, we'll get to see more reaction from kiddos enjoying their new space at We Care for We Folks Methodist Church Daycare and Preschool. Pittsburgh State University honored veterans and their families with a virtual Memorial Day ceremony. The ceremony featured traditional elements, including recordings of a color guard comprised of cadets from PSU's ROTC program and recordings of PSU's music students singing of the national anthem and playing of taps. The ceremony featured recorded remarks by Kirby Brown, current dean of Park University's College of Management, and a 40-year veteran of military and federal service.
To please think in some reflection on those people who have gone before us, protected our way of life, and in general have given of their life to ensure we are able to live the life that we have now.
You can view the entire ceremony anytime at pittstate.tv. Neighborhood Lifehouse in Joplin kicks off summer with their 2nd annual Summer Sizzle Block Party. Burgers and hot dogs were provided, but it also encouraged people to bring their own food and drinks to share. A 50-50 raffle was also held to go with music and games.
So we call it Summer Sizzle. It's our 2nd time to do this in the North Heights neighborhood, and it's just our group's getting people together from the neighborhood to have a party.
There were kids' activities as well, and to cap off the day, they had an epic water balloon war. Neighborhood Lifehouse is a faith-based organization that provides after-school programs and community outreach. In a follow-up to Friday's This Day in History, today marks the day the BBC imposes a total ban on the single God Save the Queen.
You mean a Sex Pistols song?
The ban would serve as a kiss of death for a normal pop song, but it was a powerful endorsement for an anti-establishment rant like God Save the Queen. So yes, some in the tabloid press accused the Sex Pistols of treason, even calling for a public hanging. The BBC, on the other hand, merely labeled the record as an example of, quote, gross bad taste. The release of the song coincided with the Queen's Silver Jubilee. In an effort to further stir the waters, the band took to the Thames River for a live performance of the song on board a boat chartered by Sir Richard Branson. The police chased the boat down and arrested its unruly passengers, which only served to give the Sex Pistols the attention they had set out to create in the first place.
Trevor, is Ron up in the booth? Tim, is Ron up in the booth? Yeah. Did Glenn Matlock write that song? Yeah. Yeah. It's iconic. I did not know it was banned.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't know anything about this boat chase or any of that.
No, I knew that it was.
Oh my gosh.
It's typical Sex Pistols stuff.
Right.
But no, I did not know that song was banned. Wow. Okay. And it's just interesting that would be like connected to this day in history with with as much stuff as we've been doing about the Queen Jubilee and things of that nature.
Yeah, it kind of fits in, honestly.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. I always enjoy this day in Sex Pistols history. Which I feel you brought us right there. 7-day forecast, Bronte, with highs today in the mid-80s. But remember, we've got thunderstorms coming, and we're looking at anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of rain as a cold front begins to sag down upon us. And that will also bring us high wind and the possibility of golf ball-sized hail.
Well, that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, we've got a story about a plane crash and the passengers who survived in part thanks to some Good Samaritans. Plus, professional sports figures call for change in the wake of the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And the FDA investigates an outbreak of hepatitis A that they've linked to organic strawberries. You're watching the KOAM Morning News, more real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Topping Nation Watch this morning, the horrific school shooting in Uvalde, Texas has led to an avalanche of calls for gun reform from community leaders and politicians. Professional athletes and coaches are speaking up too. Brian Todd has more on how they're using their celebrity to demand change.
Since we left shoot-around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here.
Steve Kerr set the tone just hours after 19 children and 2 teachers were murdered in Uvalde, Texas. The Golden State Warriors coach, who had a crucial playoff game that night, wasn't about to talk basketball.
When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough.
Late last week, San Francisco Giants manager Gabe Kapler decided to take his own personal stand against gun violence regarding a pregame tradition.
I don't plan on coming out for the anthem going forward until I feel I feel better about the direction of our country.
Kapler said on his blog, quote, "Every time I place my hand over my heart and remove my hat, I'm participating in a self-congratulatory glorification of the only country where these mass shootings take place." Kapler did stand for the national anthem ahead of his team's game today because of Memorial Day. The New York Yankees, a team so mindful of tradition that it won't allow its players to have beards, have taken their own action. Last Thursday, while their teams competed against each other on the field, the Yankees and Tampa Bay Rays organizations used their social media accounts to post messages and facts about gun violence in the U.S. The NBA's Miami Heat, in the midst of an intense playoff run, urged fans to contact their lawmakers about gun law reform.
At their heart, they are members of a community. Athletes and coaches, managers are members of a community. And if their community is hurting, those are their fans. Those are the people who watch and cheer for them.
In Steve Kerr's case, it gets personal.
I want every person here, every person listening to this, to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this.
Kerr does know the feeling. His father, Malcolm, president of the American University of Beirut, was assassinated by gunmen in 1984 when Steve Kerr was a freshman in college. Even at a moment as unique as this, can sports figures make any difference in the gun debate?
If that just gives it a little nudge, maybe that can help. But I don't think any of us is a Pollyanna here, and assuming that just because a few athletes, coaches, managers' voices are heard, that teams are doing things on social media, that by itself is going to change things.
Christine Brennan, the sports analyst at the end of that piece, says top sports figures can make a difference if they take further steps. But she says their challenge is staying focused on the issue beyond the days immediately after a mass shooting.
So I want to reiterate what Steve Kerr went through, because this was eye-opening to me, Bronte. I never understood why Steve Kerr was so adamant when we had a national disaster and a catastrophe about why he took this stand, until I found out, like we just heard, about his father. Mm-hmm. Going through that, I also found out that Steve Kerr, while playing a college basketball game, was taunted with people yelling PLO and "Where's your dad?"
My God.
During a college basketball game.
It's awful.
Yes. I'm going to finish off this story by telling you that he scored 25 points and they won. But now we know why he is so adamant. And if anybody has a right to pound the table when that happens to your family, you've got that right.
Yeah.
We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. 2 adults and a 7-month-old baby, all of them in a scary situation over the weekend. Inside a plane, it crashed into a river. Thanks to several good Samaritans who were at the right place at the right time, everybody made it out alive. Georgina Fernandez with the story.
This person could not have picked a better spot to crash a plane.
A near disaster with all the right rescue components in position.
And I just happened to be there on the right day at the right time.
On Saturday, Brett Winterbottom was providing extra hands on deck for a ziplining company in Glacier Valley. That's when he saw a small plane on the horizon.
He turned around and then kept getting lower, and all of a sudden he passed the trees and out of sight, and then we heard it.
A sound he won't ever forget.
And then all of a sudden just a tunk, like a dull thud and a splash in the river.
Then silence.
And we said to each other, did that plane just crash?
With barely a moment to think, Winterbottom, along with a nurse on his ziplining tour, jumped right into action, running first to the river's edge.
Like, I caught a glimpse of them as soon as I got to the river, and they were floating, and I was like, we have to get downriver fast or they're going to float past us.
A race against time in the fast-moving waters of the mighty Matanuska.
They were floating on the plane just like a boat. Like, they were running as fast as the water was moving.
Winterbottom says he tethered himself to an ATV that was on site to get to the people on board. One of them was a man who swam, one arm pulling him towards Winterbottom, the other holding a baby.
I've never seen a human being work as hard to survive, and to keep his son above water in those kind of rapids was insane.
Both the man and woman, the only 2 adults on board, were able to make it out of the water, soon reunited, along with a baby on the shoreline.
Winterbottom says it all happened within about 10 minutes of hearing the plane crash. Says he had no connection with the family and did not remain in contact. Says he was just doing his part, being the right person in the right place at the right time. Understatement of the day right there. All right, so we've got the rain beginning to make its way into the northwestern section of the 4 states. Remember, that's a part of a big cold front, slow-moving cold front that's going to drop down upon us. We're already seeing the rain formulate, and that's coming down. We can actually tell how hard that's coming down. Let's go just north of Iowa, 1.34 inches an hour. So that is heavy rainfall right there. As we throw on the lightning tracker, just a couple of strikes in our area, but we're going to expect that to increase as we make it through the morning hours, especially up to the northwest. Our temperatures right now, we haven't really seen much of a sink. We'll start that up to the northwest as that color contour begins to move in upon us. It's not going to be one of those that massively drops our temperatures down, more so stabilizes them in the 70s. But as we progress through today into tomorrow, what we will see is torrential rainfall, and that's going to lead us to flood watches all the way into tomorrow morning. Also, too, the threat of not only high winds, but also even some hail. This storm system has already dropped hail as much as 1 inch in diameter in portions of Lyon County and in Jackson County up toward Kansas City. So that's what we will be anticipating as well. And then we will ride the 70s all the way into the weekend. And back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Topping Health Watch this morning, a warning from the Food and Drug Administration after the agency says they're investigating a possible link between a hepatitis outbreak and fresh organic strawberries. Mandy Gaither has what you need to know.
A hepatitis A outbreak, 17 cases identified in California, Minnesota, and North Dakota, leading to 12 hospitalizations, according to the FDA. The agency is now investigating a potential link between the cases and fresh organic strawberries branded as Fresh Campo and HEB, purchased between March 5th and April 25th. They were distributed nationwide at a number of retailers, including Aldi, HEB, Kroger, Safeway, Sprouts Farmers Market, Trader Joe's, Walmart, Wise Markets, and Winco Foods. More products may be included as the investigation is ongoing. While the potentially affected strawberries are now past their shelf life, the FDA says people who froze them for later use shouldn't eat them, throw them away. The CDC says symptoms of hepatitis A usually appear 15 to 50 days after eating or drinking contaminated food or water and include fatigue, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, jaundice, dark urine, and pale stool. Anyone who thinks they may have symptoms after eating the strawberries should contact their healthcare provider.
The FDA also recommends anyone who bought and ate the strawberries in the last 2 weeks who hasn't been vaccinated against hepatitis A should consult with a healthcare professional to determine whether post-exposure preventative action is needed. That's a look at one of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. We'll be right back. Coming up, authorities search Grand Lake for a Bixby, Oklahoma man.
A sunny start, but thunderstorms moving in along with a cold front. We've got the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, a child care center in McDonald County receives a much-needed grant for education, training, and, of course, toys.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6:30. I'm Bronte Starotsky. We will get right to those stories, but first, Michael is going to tell us about the beautiful weather we're currently experiencing, but some storms that are on the way.
They're trying to move in, Bronte, as we go to the northwestern portion of our map right here. Up in Iowa, Yates Center, coming at Chanute, and when we throw on the lightning tracker, an immense amount has poured in here in the last 15 minutes alone. And that's why we have flood watches that are in effect all the way until Wednesday morning. Now, as we transition over 7th and Rangeline, gorgeous start here in Joplin, sitting at 75 degrees. Still do have the south wind coming in at 15 to 20 miles per hour. We have yet to see a large drop in our temperatures, but up to the northwest, we start to see that color contour begin to dip into the green, an indicator that along that cold front are going to be those thunderstorms that continually drop in on us all day long. For the majority of our area, we're going to stay dry for most of the morning and afternoon, but that is going to change rapidly by the time we get to, say the evening hours, as we'll have a definitive line of thunderstorms that work through, and once they do, 2 to 3 inches of rain along with high winds, and also too, good possibility of hail, and that is why we find ourselves in that elevated category on the severe thunderstorm risk map. This is going to be one of those that is nothing to fool around about, and so once again, you're going to want to keep it here. We will keep you updated as the watches and warnings begin to pour in. Bronte, I was just checking in with our good friends up in the Wichita and Kansas City area, and 1.5 inch diameter hail.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I'm going to try to get some pictures on air here. It is It is nothing to fool around about.
We were talking earlier this morning too about how you could see the storms out there a little bit from here.
You could actually see the lightning ripple across the sky.
Right, because I asked Michael because I saw lightning as I was driving and I was kind of freaking out because I'm like, I didn't think we were supposed to have storms yet. I didn't realize you could see it from that far away.
Yeah, that far. It's one of those things because our skies are so clear right now that you can see it actually carry across the sky for miles and miles and miles. And then here, by the time we get to the evening, it's going to be upon us.
Oh no, well, thanks, Michael. Missouri State Highway Patrol says a boat capsized on Lake of the Ozarks around 6 Sunday evening. Officials say the boat was traveling too fast for conditions, which caused it to capsize. The 3 people on the boat were ejected. 41-year-old Derek Grigsby of Sand Springs and a 13-year-old girl were transported to a hospital for moderate injuries. 13-year-old boy had minor injuries but refused treatment. Authorities have discovered a man's body in Elk River. Officials responded to a report Sunday evening of a man missing on Elk River south of Ginger Blue near Mount Shira access. 40-year-old Matthew Frazier was discovered this morning unresponsive. Frazier was pronounced dead shortly after. He was not wearing a life vest. The Grand River Dam Authority police are searching for a missing boater. Officials say they're searching a large area of Grand Lake for 48-year-old Troy Young of Bixby. GRDA police say they were notified Young was missing around 8 Saturday morning and that Young was last seen around 10:30 Friday night. Officers recovered Young's boat near the entrance of Ketchum Cove, about 1.5 miles from Cedar Port. Authorities are asking any boaters in the area to be mindful of the search efforts, and anyone with information is asked to call the GRDA police. Pittsburgh State University honored veterans and their families with a virtual Memorial Day ceremony. The ceremony featured traditional elements, including recordings of a color guard comprised of cadets from PSU's ROTC program and recordings of the playing of taps and singing of the national anthem by PSU music students. The ceremony featured recorded remarks by Kirby Brown, current dean of Park University's College of Management and a 40-year-old veteran of military and federal service.
It is to honor the over 1 million of our citizens who have given their life in service to our country. As we think about that ultimate sacrifice, I have found that Memorial Day is a very personal day for me also.
You can view the entire ceremony anytime at psu.tv. When it comes to childcare, not everyone can afford the centers that come with all the bells and whistles. But a grant-funded program under the Alliance of Southwest Missouri is leveling out the playing field. KOAM's Kate Kelly tells us more about the Infant Toddler Specialist Network, how it's making a difference for one daycare in McDonald County.
For Jennifer Harris, this daycare is more than just a place to work. It's home.
This was a daycare that was started by my grandmother 37 years ago. And I have been here for about 25 years, really. I started working here as a young teen, and I have been here ever since.
After all those years of wear and tear and play, this center is getting some much-needed TLC thanks to the Alliance's grant-funded Infant Toddler Specialist Network Program, or ITSN.
We're not a regulatory program. We're not coming in as licensing to look at the facility. We're just here to enhance, provide trainings, and we really work, I feel, very closely with the directors and the providers to see what needs they really want and need to enhance the programs that they are doing excellent work in already.
ITSN is only a few years old, but the idea is to recruit centers in need of resources or technical assistance. The program currently serves 10 counties with hopes to expand.
We are trying to increase the quality of care within these centers because of their state subsidized payments. We're trying to level the playing field between state subsidized programs and private funded programs.
Whether it's timely education for staff on site or enriching toys for kids in a sensory room, ITSN is making a difference in the lives of children in Southwest Missouri.
It makes your day, like there's nothing better.
And I don't think they could stay with anything for more than 2 minutes because they were just on to the next thing, and they just really enjoyed it because we needed some new stuff around here.
In Knoll, Kate Kelly, KOAM News.
If you're interested in more information about ITSN, you can check out this article on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. You should note, Kay Kelly is also employed by the Alliance of Southwest Missouri. Well, on this day in 2005, the family of Mark Felt identifies him as Deep Throat, the secret source who helped unravel the Watergate scandal. The question, who was Deep Throat, had been investigated relentlessly in the ensuing years since Watergate in movies, books, television, shows, and on the internet. America was obsessed with the shadowy figure who went to great lengths to conceal his involvement with Washington Post reporters Woodward and Bernstein. Although his name was often mentioned as a possibility, Felt consistently denied being Deep Throat. In 1973, the Washington Post won a Pulitzer Prize in public service for its coverage of the Watergate scandal. Mark Felt died on December 18, 2008, at the age of 95.
Everybody from Fred Fielding to Diane Sawyer, because you have to remember, she was working in the White House at that time. Fielding, Sawyer, James Buchanan, John Dean. Yeah, it was, and it was one of those things that I remember when it was answered. It was truly the journalistic question of Carly Simon's "You're So Vain," who was Deep Throat, and yeah, Mark Felt. And I know it'd been kicked around that it could have been him, but then again, our laundry list was so long as far as who it could have, or was it, and there was a possibility too, maybe it wasn't one person. Maybe it was 6 or 7 people and their stories combined.
Right.
That was Woodward and Bernstein's source. And I have to give them so much journalistic credit in the fact that they said they would never reveal the source until said source was no longer with us, or if that person decided that they would reveal themselves.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely something we are taught in, journalism school too. I remember learning about this, a couple of years ago when I was in school. And
burn your notes. So let's peel back the curtain. If you, for people watching. So folks, after you have notes as a journalist, if you are in the regular process of disposing of your notes, a jury can't ask you for them, as long as that is your regular process of work. Yeah. That being said, let's take a live look over I-35 southbound at 175th up in the Kansas City area. Tim, you are unbelievable. And give you an idea, we see a little rain on the scout camera there, and that is the storm system that is moving through Kansas City right now, and eventually that's going to drop down upon us. So as we transition into future track here, give you an idea, as that storm moves through Kansas City and then the cold front arrives and drops down to the southeast, how we get the heavy rain for this evening all the way into tomorrow morning, high winds, even the possibility of hail. And while our nighttime lows really don't sink too far down, our daily highs are only in the 70s for the rest of the week.
That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News. As summer travel season heats up, many airlines are suffering from a shortage of pilots. Plus, the question of gun control stays in the public spotlight after the mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde. We let you weigh in, and we'll be right back. In Consumer Watch this morning, airports expect to be busier this summer than they have been in years, and airlines will have to handle the load with a shortage of pilots. Errol Burnett explains.
Jenna Williams is moving toward his goal of logging 1,500 hours to become a commercial airline pilot.
Right now, I'm embarking on the 400-hour mark, and I spent about $60,000 to $80,000 to get an actual commercial license and to get to where you need to get to. It's going to cost over maybe $100,000.
The immense time and expense of certification will eventually place him in high demand. Over the next decade, more than 14,000 pilot openings are projected each year. But the pandemic slowed the rate of newly minted pilots, with only 4,300 graduating in 2021. At the same time, older pilots accepted COVID-era buyouts, further thinning the ranks.
We're not quite back up to the number of pilots that we had pre-pandemic, but we're close.
Southwest CEO Bob Jordan is ramping up hiring in search of 2,000 new pilots.
We have about 5-6% of our aircraft right now that we can't fly because we don't have enough staffing.
In Atlanta, Delta's chief training captain said his airline is confident it will meet demand.
We're hiring 200 plus a month, and we're training 400 to 500 pilots every month in qualification training. So we feel good right now.
Some carriers have long-term solutions for the pilot pipeline. United and Alaska Airlines created in-house flight schools, while Delta started the Propel program, helping staffers pivot to pilot life.
The industry says there's no quick fix. Some of the ideas being thrown around include raising the pilot requirement age from 65 to 67 or lowering that 1,500 flight hour requirement, but pilots' unions are staunchly against those changes. That's it for Consumer Watch, so let's go over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Thank you, Bronte. This morning, discussing lawmakers' changes and gun safety. A fierce divide between gun safety demonstrators and gun rights advocates outside the NRA convention. Our question for you this morning, what do lawmakers need to do about gun control? 49% of you right now say increase security funding. The rest of the votes kind of split between passing new laws, banning assault weapons, better background checks, and also funding mental health. You can make your voice heard each and every morning by going to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Also connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now. We're going to come back, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, but first, off to New York. Let's check in with Michelle Miller.
I'm Michelle Miller. Coming up on CBS Mornings, best-selling author Gillian Flynn joins us to celebrate the 10th anniversary of her book, Gone Girl. Plus, she'll read from unreleased chapters of the book for the very first time. Don't want to miss that. It's coming up on We're CBS. here to help.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Fireman First Class Joseph Adams. The Baxter Springs, Kansas native served in Okinawa and Nagasaki from 1944 to 1946. This decorated veteran earned the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal. To Firearm First Class Joseph Adams, we thank you, today's four-state hero.
Let's get our birthday list started with an amazing picture of one Aldrich Alumba. As he turns the big number 4, we have a scientist on our hands. This is great. I absolutely love that picture, Audrey.
Yeah.
A happy 4th birthday to you in Webb City.
All right, next we have
Aw.
May Anderson, also turning 4. Oh my God, that cat is adorable. May is out of Fort Scott.
All right, so just keep the picture there because I like to say this every now and then when one of those pops up. Folks, if that does not put a smile on your face on a Tuesday morning, I can't help you. Like, that is absolutely adorable right there, Miss May. I love that. Adeline Bruner, she is celebrating her, speaking of great smiles, my goodness. Miss Adeline is turning the big number 9. She is in Lockwood. Adeline, a very happy birthday to you.
All right, next we have Ashlyn Ratzlaff turning the Sweet 16.
Sweet 16.
Sweet 16. It got kind of tongue-tied there. She is out of Fredonia.
I love that. We have Olivia Soper, who's turning 17. Miss Olivia, a very happy birthday to you. Bronte, have you ever seen Olivia spelled that way? I have not.
I have not. That's super unique.
I love that. That is very, very unique and lovely. Olivia, happy birthday in Columbus.
All right, we have Colleen Wagner turning 27. And Colleen, you have a special message from Mom and Dad. She's also serving as a constable deputy in Texas right now, but you have love from Mom and Dad out here. So happy birthday, Colleen.
Not just Texas, she's in Harris County. I'm sure Miss Colleen is a very busy person. Thank you for your service, Colleen. Heather Merritt celebrating her 29th birthday. Gorgeous picture right there. Heather is celebrating in Parsons.
All right, we have Mindy Profit turning 38 years old, and Mindy is out of Pittsburgh.
She doesn't look a day over 4.
I
love it. All right, somebody had it. It's probably Mindy's mom and dad. Somebody set that one up. That's a good one right there. All right, we got the Yogurt twins, Dan and Mike. They're celebrating their 49th birthday. Dan and Mike, a very happy birthday to you. Great pick of you two as well.
All right, and then we have an anniversary. Richard and Linda Jameson celebrating their 6th anniversary, and they are out of Pittsburgh.
Okay, now get this one. We've got Marilyn Jenny, who's celebrating her 77th birthday. And there's a reason that Carolyn Mitz happens to be turning 77 as well. That would be because they're twin sisters. And so a very happy birthday to Marilyn, who's with us in Columbus. And Carolyn, long distance wishes to you, as Miss Carolyn celebrates in Oregon. But of course, I know she's watching on KOAMnewsnow.com. And so Carolyn knows that we got her and Marilyn together. And Gary Freeman celebrated his birthday yesterday, but Mr. Gary, we were not going to forget you. A happy 72nd birthday to you. Here's where you can send them into KOAMnewsnow.com, or you can go to birthdays with an S, it's plural, birthdays at KOAMTV.com. Now here's Bronte Sorotsky with a very important birthday announcement.
You can be part of the KOAM Birthday Club by going to our website and signing up. And if you do that, you can get special deals from local businesses. So go to KOAMnewsnow.com and sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
Coming up when we transition over to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, the latest Piegate, if you will. It's kind of frustrating to see that actually happened, that somebody would do this. But we're going to explain to you how the Mona Lisa got pied. Ralph Nader is one thing. The Mona Lisa, that's another. Be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Authorities have discovered a man's body in Elk River. Officials responded to reports Sunday evening of a man missing on Elk River south of Ginger Blue near Mount Shira Access. 40-year-old Matthew Frazier was discovered this morning unresponsive. Frazier was pronounced dead shortly after. He was not wearing a life vest. A child care center in McDonald County is getting a makeover thanks to a grant-funded program. The Infant Toddler Specialist Network benefits subsidized daycare providers across 10 counties in southwest Missouri. The program aims to level the playing field against other providers by offering education, training, and of course, toys. These enriching activities promote healthy brain development. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Watching that rain begin to move in from the northwest, so we're getting a fair amount of lightning, and we have flood watches already in effect until tomorrow morning. That line will continually drop down upon the rest of the 4 states, so it will move from northwest down to the southeast, leading us to severe thunderstorm risk in the elevated area, meaning high winds and also to possibility of hail. It'll really get on us for this afternoon all the way through the evening hours. Temperatures dropping into the 70s for the rest of the week.
All right, well, coming up today at noon, we're making southern shrimp and grits in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Morning news continues on KOAM. CBS Mornings is coming up next. We've got New York Times bestselling author John Grisham joining us. I did not know that because I thought it was going to be Gillian Flynn talking about Gone Girl, because that's what Michelle Miller had. Also, too, of note, Gillian Flynn, Gone Girl. You know the book, right?
I know of it.
Okay, where did Nick and Amy go?
I haven't read it.
Carthage.
Oh.
Yeah. There's actually a 4-state tie to Gone Girl.
All right.
Tremendous book, by the way, for those of you who are looking for a little summer reading. Strongly recommend Gone Girl.
Right. Well, or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. This morning, vets have a new four-legged ally in the fight against PTS.
Plus, Steve Burnett stopping by the studio. We're going to talk about some old mining town days. So that's all when we flip over to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Remember, don't go anywhere without the umbrella today. More importantly, do me a favor, be safe. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we'll see you at noon after the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.